Well, good morning. Welcome to Creek's End on this Labor Day weekend. Good to see you. We were out of town last week, so it's good to be back. I haven't been up here teaching for quite a while, and so I'm back in the saddle again. If you're watching on our live stream, welcome as well. We're concluding a series called Pay Attention, and we've been in the book of Proverbs. And I hope it's been a good series for you. So much wisdom there. You remember, you've probably forgotten by now, but I started this thing about 6 weeks ago. And I started with talking about the conditions of getting wisdom. That's kind of how we introduced the series. Remember, we talked about if, for, and then. If we do this, then God will do this. And the Bible says that if any man lacks wisdom, let him ask of God. And yet there are still conditions we have to meet to gain that godly wisdom. And then each week, one of our teaching pastors would give us some nuggets of wisdom from Proverbs. The first week, Josh talked about the wisdom of community, that we can't live the Christian life alone. There is wisdom in being together and being a community and living this life and being accountable to each other. And then the next week, Jesse talked about the wisdom of applying God's word to our lives and not changing it to fit our needs, but yet using it and applying it to our lives so that we can live out. The next week, Pastor Tim talked about the wisdom of trusting God with all your heart. And he shared a personal story as well. And I would just stop for a moment to say this. Please pray for his wife, Kim, this morning. She had surgery this past Friday to remove the tube that she had, and she didn't have a good night last night. So y'all keep her in your prayers if you don't mind. And that's why he's not here this morning. But he talked about trusting God with all his heart. That's what he's doing right now. He's not only teaching it, but he's living it. There's wisdom in trusting God with all your heart, with every area of your life. And then last week, Pastor Wade was up. And again, I wasn't here last week, but I watched on the live stream. And I got to see how the camera does put 10 extra pounds on Wade. So anyway, he did a good job of teaching us the wisdom of applying God's blueprint to our lives. And so today we're going to conclude with another, I think, very wise principle. I'm going to get there in a moment, but let me start it this way. Some of you have been here long enough at Creek's End to remember when we had a group of motorcycle riders here. Quite a big group. We had a lot of bikers at one time. And over the years, some have moved off, some quit riding, and kind of lost our leadership. And so, we just kind of get together when we can. And most of you know my enthusiasm about riding motorcycles. Well, we had a group, and we called it the Grace Riders, Godly Riders at Creek's End. And we would go on trips, and big groups of trips. I want to show you a picture of our very first motorcycle ride. This was the group we started with. And we had a great time. We planned on going up to through Anderson, Texas, through Sam Houston State Forest, and then to a little bitty town called Carlos, where there is a place called Yankee Tavern that has some great burgers. And we were just going to ride up there and back as a group. And when you're in a big group like this, there's safety concerns you have to think about. So you meet and you talk about the route. And then each motorcycle group has what they call a leader. And the person who's the leader is the one who's at the front, kind of giving signals to the people in back what to do. As we approach a red light, for instance, there's a hand signal for slow down. And when the leader does that, then every person behind him does the same signal, and it passes the signal on back so that we can be safe. If there's a biker, when I say biker, a cyclist, I don't know why they call themselves bikers, but anyway, a cyclist riding on the road, then we have to move over and account for that, and the leader will take his hand and put it right on top of his helmet like this, and that means single file. And we will get behind him, and we will get past that pedestrian or our rider. And there are all kinds of signals, and we pass them back. If there's roadkill, which we have to contend with as bikers, the leader will stick his foot out, whichever one it is, and point to it, and then everyone behind will do the same thing to show that we need to watch out for that. So you have a leader, and then at the back you have a person that we call the sweeper. I don't know why they're called sweepers. They don't sweep. They're the back, and they just kind of make sure the group is together, and that if a group gets behind, then he helps them catch up. So it's a lot of fun, but you have to think about the safety. Well, on this trip, we were having a great time. We went to Montgomery, and we got on 149 that goes up through Sam Houston State Forest, and then we turned on what we thought was a continuation of Highway 149. We got 3 miles or so down the road, and all of a sudden, the pavement ends. And you can imagine this group of motorcycle riders were in formation. And I think we even had a car riding with us that, a convertible or something was behind. And so we all have to stop. You ever seen, the clunk, 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 clunk? Thankfully, that didn't happen. I mean, everybody hit their brakes and everybody was safe. I think the car that was in the back barely missed the sweeper by about that much. But we all stopped because we ran out of road. Now, I won't tell you who our leader was, but his initials are Mike Pace. And there he is. He's guilty right there, Anyway, we thought we were on the right road, but we ran out of pavement. We had to turn around and go back and retrace and get back on the road. We did make it there. But it was a unique experience in that we can draw a couple of things from that example of what we're going to be talking about today. When we did that, two things. One, we never intended to get on the wrong road, did we, Mike? That was not our intention, okay? We did not intend to get on the wrong road. Secondly, we didn't know we were on the wrong road till we ran out of pavement. And you see, a life is a lot like that. When we get on a road, we don't intentionally get on that road, but somehow we get on it. And sometimes we don't realize we're on the wrong road until something happens and the pavement runs out. And we end up somewhere we didn't plan to be, intend to be, or want to be. And that brings me to the principle that I want to talk about today, and that's this. You need to pay attention, because whatever road you're on determines your destination. Whatever road you're on determines your destination. Now, you look at that and go, wow, Bobby, come on, duh. How long did it take you to come up with that? Well, it took me going down a few wrong roads to get to that conclusion. And it's a principle that, yes, it's very obvious, and we get it in the world of driving. We know that anybody who was planning on going to Galveston for Labor Day weekend, if they get on I-45 and go north, they're not going to get to Galveston. It's just a principle. No matter how you intended to, no matter how many bathing suits you packed, no matter if you even prayed for safe protection while you were going. If you go north on I-45, you are not going to get to Galveston, and you'll be very disappointed. Dallas has no beaches. Well, we understand that in that realm. But there seems to be a disconnect with this principle when it comes to the road of marriage. Because marriage is a road. When it comes to dating, that's a road. Our financial philosophy is a road. Our career is a road. Our health, our physical life is a road. Our spiritual life is a road. And for some reason, we just disconnect this principle with those areas of our lives. But this principle is true. We can't avoid it. Every road has a destination, and the road you're on determines your destination. So I want us to take a look at this principle. It's found in Proverbs chapter 7. Proverbs chapter 7, if you want to turn there, there's a Bible in front of you if you want to turn there and actually hold the paper in your hands. And, of course, the verses will be on the screen. But for some reason, we think that our intentions and our hopes and our dreams somehow trump the decisions we make on a daily basis. And that's just not true. Every road leads to a destination, and whatever road you're on determines your destination. Now, we're going to read a story about a specific road that illustrates this principle today. So let me tell you what's going on before we read these verses. This was written, as most of the Proverbs were, by the wisest man in the world, Solomon. And the way he writes this is interesting. Every week you've heard us teaching, and we've been taking some nuggets of wisdom from the Proverbs, just sayings that are very wise. Solomon does it a little differently here in that he tells a story. He narrates a story, and he uses this story to illustrate this principle. And what he's doing is, it's interesting. He's standing at a window looking down on the street. So he's probably at least 2 stories up. And he's looking through a window, and he sees this guy walking along. And from his perspective, he can see where this guy's going. And he knows that this guy's destination is not going to be a good one. So he has a perspective that this young man doesn't have that's walking along on the street. It would be like on our motorcycle ride, if we'd have had a helicopter up in the air following us. From that perspective, that helicopter could have radioed down and said, "Stop, you're running out of road." That's the perspective that Solomon has in this little story that he's going to tell. And you may have been in a similar situation just like Solomon, where you saw that something was about to happen. Maybe you were approaching an intersection and you saw a car run a red light, and then suddenly, boom, you knew what was going to happen before it happened. Maybe you've come upon that, and you can kind of predict the future for a moment. Those of you who have toddlers, you know how you're sitting around and watching your kids play, and all of a sudden you know what's about to happen, and you can't do a thing about it, like they're going to trip on something. And you know that thing that we have in our living room is called a coffee table? That's really called a toddler killer. That's what that is. Honestly, how many of you had kids that hit something on a coffee table? Just wow. See what I mean? Why don't they call it what it is? A toddler killer. No, I remember when Heath was young one time as a toddler. And I was watching him play, and I saw it. I knew it was going to happen. There was a toy that he was about to trip on while he was running. I saw it. As young as I still was not going to be able to move that fast. But I predicted the future. I said, he's going to hit the table. And sure enough, boom, he hits the table with his teeth. And he knocks a tooth out. And once he gets over the initial, shock of it and the crying of it, he looks at his mom, who, as you know, is a dental assistant, so teeth are very important in our family. "Mom, get the toothpaste and paste this thing back in." I'm honest. That's what he said. "You got to glue my tooth back in." But saw it was going to happen, but I couldn't do anything about it. And sometimes we have the perspective, especially as parents, and looking and see our child make a wrong decision or get on the wrong road. And we can see it, and we just can't do anything about it. That's the perspective of Solomon in this story that he's about to tell. So he narrates and he navigates this kid's journey, and in doing so, he illustrates this principle that every road has a destination, and whatever road you're on determines your destination. We're going to begin in verse 6, so read along with me. "At the window of my house, I looked down through the lattice. I saw among the simple, I noticed among the young men, a youth who lacked judgment." Now, let me stop here and say all youths lack judgment, right? But it's not because there's anything wrong with youth. It's because judgment requires time and experience, and youths do not have time and experience. Students, the reason your parents come down on you sometimes is because they have a perspective that you don't have, time and experience. And while they may dress funny and listen to yucky music, they still have time and experience on their side. And they can see things that you can't see. That gives them judgment. So Solomon sees this young guy walking down the street. And in verse 8, he says he was going down the street near her corner, walking down in the direction of her house at twilight, as the day was fading, as the dark of night set in. Now, you don't have to be a Bible scholar to know where this story is going, do you? I mean, Solomon is painting the picture. You don't even have to have read this story before to know where this story is going. Here's this kid walking down the street. The sun's going down. He's headed toward this woman's house. The sun's setting. The back of his mind, this kid is knowing that this is just going to be the greatest thing that's ever happened to him. Meanwhile, up in the window, Solomon is watching this thing. And there's some things going on in the back of his mind. There's this huge contrast between what this kid is experiencing and thinks he's going to experience and what the older, wiser man, how he sees this. Because the wiser man knows this principle, that whatever road you're on determines your destination. And this kid thinks that it's going to be an exciting event. Solomon says, no, it's not an event. It's a road. It's a road. And every road has a destination. And this road has a very predictable destination. So let's continue the story. Verse 10. "Then out came a woman to meet him, dressed like a prostitute, even though she's not a prostitute. And with crafty intent, she is loud and defiant. Her feet never stay at home. Now in the street, now in the squares, at every corner she lurks. She took hold of him and kissed him, and with a brazen face she said, and this means nothing to us, but she said, I have fellowship offerings at home. What is that? Well, basically, what she's saying is, I'm not a prostitute. I have plenty of money. I'm not here for your money. And then look at what she says. Today, I have fulfilled my vows. Now again, that means nothing to us, but here's what she was saying. She's saying, you know what? I've been to the temple. I have done what I'm supposed to do with my sin. I've taken my bucket of sin, and I've taken it to God, and I've sacrificed the animal that I'm supposed to sacrifice, and I've dumped it all on the altar. God has forgiven me of all my sin in the past, and now I have an empty bucket, and I'm ready to fill it up again with you. That's what she's saying. Now, let me stop here and just say this. Every one of us in this room has done that to some capacity. No matter what our background, we have taken our bucket full of sin and we've taken it to God to empty. Now, some of us were raised Catholic. Many of you were raised Catholic. And you had a very sophisticated system on how to do that, didn't you? You were told that you had to go to a priest. You took your bucket of sin to the priest. You dumped your bucket on him. And he absolved you of your sin. And then you were able to take your empty bucket and go out, fill it up until you had to come back again. Now, if you're like me and were raised Protestant, we have not such a sophisticated system. We were taught we don't need the priest. We were taught that we can take our bucket to God himself. And we can pray and ask for forgiveness, and we can empty all of our sins out, and that God will forgive us. And the Bible says that not only that, he erases it, and not only does he erase it, he forgets it. He doesn't even remember it. So we take our bucket of sin and we empty it before God, and then we take it out on Monday and we go fill it up again. That's what this lady was doing. That's what we do from time to time. And it's really such an insult to God. I mean, we're like saying, God, you know what? You're not very smart. I've got your system figured out. That's what this lady does. I've emptied my bucket. I'm squared with God. So now whatever happens, happens. I'm ready to fill my bucket up with you. Look at what happens in verse 15. So I came out to meet you. Not just anybody. I came out to meet you. I looked for you and have found you. Now, what does that do to this guy? She's looking for me. I must be the man of her dreams. I must be the one. This is what songs are written about. This is what romance novels are written about. She's looking for me. Verse 16, I have covered my bed with colored linens from Egypt. I have perfumed my bed with myrrh, aloes, and cinnamon. Come, let's drink of love till morning. Let's enjoy ourselves with love. Verse 19, my husband is not at home. Well, I'm kind of assuming that, aren't you? Thanks for taking that question out of my mind. He has gone on a long journey, which means you don't have to rush out in the morning. I'll make some pancakes. We'll have breakfast. And this is better than this guy's expected. And it's like, she says, and this next part kind of bothers me. He took his purse filled with money and will not be home till full moon. May I just paraphrase that and say, he took his man bag filled with money and will not be home till full moon. In fact, he's gone a long time. You can come back tomorrow night. You can come back all week. He's gone. Verse 21. With persuasive words, she led him astray. She seduced him with her smooth talk. All at once, he followed her like an ox going to the slaughter. Oh, Solomon, wait a minute. It doesn't feel like that. It doesn't feel like that. It's more like a celebrity going into a club. It's more like a professional athlete walking into a room where women are just clamoring to be with him. It's nothing like that. An ox going to a slaughter? No, it doesn't feel like that. But that's not how the older, wiser Solomon sees it. He says it's like an ox going to the slaughter. Or how about this? Like a deer stepping into a noose till an arrow pierces his liver. Or like this, like a bird darting into a snare, little knowing it will cost him his life. Now, wait a minute. Solomon, you sound like my parents. I mean, you got this all wrong. This is just a date. This is just an event. No, it's a road. You're down here focused on what you're doing. I'm up here focused on where you're going. You're down there focused on the immediate. I'm up here focused on the ultimate. Two very contrasting perspectives of the same event. In verse 24, Solomon pulls out of the narrative and that scene, and he begins to address you and me. And here's what he says in verse 24. Now then, my sons, listen to me. And what are those next two words? Pay attention. Pay attention to what I say. Do not let your heart turn to her ways or stray into her paths. Many are the victims she has brought down. Her slain are a mighty throng. I hate to break it to you, son, but this is not a unique situation. I know you think I've never felt this way before, but I'm telling you, a lot of people have. I know you think it's unique, it's special, it's a one-of-a-kind thing, but Solomon says, no, it's a road. And every road has a destination. And your destination is so predictable, I can say with confidence that you're like an ox going to the slaughter. And Solomon isn't through yet. In verse 27, he says, her house is a highway to the grave. This isn't just a road, son. This is an expressway. It's a highway to the grave leading down to the chambers of death. It's a road that leads to destruction. So Solomon says, pay attention. Whatever road you're on determines your destination. Don't disconnect that from just driving or walking or hiking or flying. This applies to every area of your life. So what I want to do as we close today is I want to pull out two things for you. If you're writing notes, I hope you'll take these down. One's a myth and one's a truth. Here's the myth. The myth is as long as our intentions are good, it doesn't matter what road we take. As long as our intentions are good, it doesn't matter what road we take. That's just not true. I took some time to write a list because this is a culture thing. This is what culture wants us to buy into, that it's our intentions that matter. And so I wrote down I made a list of some good intentions that culture tells us. Here's one. I want to end up with a great Christian guy who's really got his act together. So I'm going to go out with whoever asks me as long as he's cute. Here's another one. I want my family to be a strong unit that loves to spend time together and do things together, so I'm going to work all the time. I want to grow old and invest in my grandchildren, so I'm going to neglect my health. I want to lose weight. I want to be thin, so supersize that. I want to know God and spend some time with him and his word every day, so I'm going to get up every morning and turn on the TV. When I get married, I want to have an incredible sex life, so I'm going to practice with everybody I date. That's what culture says. I want to have a great relationship with my spouse, so I'm going to prioritize the kids over my mate. One more. I want to be financially secure, so I'm going to load myself with consumer debt and high-interest credit cards. See, you can have all the good intentions you want, but at the end of the day, the road you take trumps your decisions. It trumps your hopes, your dreams, your prayers, The road you're on trumps those, because the road you're on is what takes you to a destination. So don't buy into this myth that culture says, as long as your intentions are good, it doesn't matter what road I take. It matters. And then finally, the truth. And the truth is this: I can't be so caught up in the immediate that I don't think about the ultimate. We can't get caught up in the immediate that we don't think about the ultimate. And the reason we're so enamored with being on the wrong road is because there is somebody or something there that it has a strong emotional appeal, and it's emotional, not rational. And that strong emotional person or thing is causing us to choose the wrong road because we're looking in front of us at the immediate, not seeing where the road leads to the ultimate. That was the case of the young man in this story. Remember, Solomon's saying, don't let her get a hold of your heart. Don't be fixated on the road, so fixated on the road that you don't see that you are on a road that leads to a destination that you don't want to go. See, many times God will put someone in your life who can see where you're headed, just like Solomon. Someone who's wise and has time and experience and judgment. And they'll say, look, listen, this is not an event. This is not a date. This isn't just a deal. This isn't just a decision. This is a road you're on. A road. And you need to stand back and ask yourself the question, is this road going to take me where I ultimately want and need to be? And more importantly, where God wants me to ultimately be. So here's a good question. How do you know which road to be on? How do you know? How do you know that that person that you want to marry is going to take you to the right destination? Because marriage is a road that leads to a destination. How do you know that moving in with that person is going to take you down the road you want to go? Because living together is not just an event. It's a road that leads to a destination. Divorce is a road that leads to a destination. Your financial philosophy is a road that leads to a destination. Your health and well-being, they're roads that lead to destinations. How do you know which road to take? Because nobody wants to wake up in their 30s wishing they had taken a different road in their 20s. And no one wants to wake up in their 50s wishing they had taken a different road in their 30s. But we've got to understand we can't get caught up with what's in front of us so much that it blinds us to where the road takes us. Is it the destination we want to be at? Now, how do we choose the wrong road? And I want to give you a great way to do that. I want to give you a verse. It's not in your notes, so you might want to write this down. It's Proverbs 22:3. If you will memorize this verse, and you can memorize it before you leave here, it's very simple. It says this: the wise see danger ahead and avoid it, but fools keep going and get into trouble. Very simple verse, but so powerful. The wise see danger ahead and what? And avoid it. How do they avoid it? By making the right decisions. By looking to see where that road leads ultimately and saying, I don't want to go down that road. They avoid it. But fools keep going and what? Get into trouble. It's a principle. You avoid danger, you're smart. You don't, you're in trouble. That simple. Because here's why. Fools do not see the connection between life from one day to the next. They don't understand life is linear. What yesterday is connected to today. Today is connected to tomorrow. And the decisions you make today will affect where you go tomorrow. The decisions you made yesterday, and many of you are already there experiencing it, led you to a place right now where you are that you don't want to be because you chose the wrong road. This is how you choose wisely. You see danger ahead and avoid it. But fools, they keep going and get into trouble. So I want to encourage you today. Understand that life is connected. Each day is connected. And no matter what your hopes and dreams and intentions are, they will never trump your decisions to be on that road that you're on. And my prayer is that if you are on the wrong road today, that you do what we did on that motorcycle ride. that we turned around, doubled back, got on the right road so that we could get to where we wanted